History of the World Continued. Part 5. 1423 AD. Thessalonica is purchased from the Byzantines by Venice in an attempt to prevent the Ottomans taking it. James I of Scotland is freed from captivity by the Treaty of London on payment of a ransom. 1425 AD. James I of Scotland executes his uncle Albany and his family. Emperor Manuel II dies and is succeeded by his son John VIII. Le Mans falls to the English. Henry the Navigator takes the Canary Islands from Castile. 1426 AD. Venice and Milan go to war. 1428 AD. By the terms of the Treaty of Delft, Duke Philip of Burgundy is made governor of Hainault, Holland and Zeeland, and heir to Jacqueline of Bavaria, Countess of these lands. 1429 AD. French lose to the English at Rouvray, Battle of the Herrings, but under the leadership of John d'Arc, relieve Orleans and are victorious at Patay, where Talbot is captured. Charles VII is crowned at Rheims. 1430 AD. Thessalonica falls to the Ottomans of Murad II. Joan of Arc is captured by the Burgundians at Compiègne and sold to the English, who imprison her at Rouen. 1431 AD. A Lollard conspiracy led by Jack Sharp is crushed by the Duke of Gloucester. Joan of Arc is burned as a witch at Rouen. 1432 AD. The Azores are discovered by the Portuguese dealer Gonzalo Cabral. Sultan Murad II takes Albania. 1434 AD. The Khmer moved their capital from Angkor to Phnom Penh. Cosimo de' Medici is recalled from exile to rule Florence. Vladislav V of Poland dies and is succeeded by his son, Vladislav VI. 1435 AD. The Riksdag of Sweden meets for the first time and makes Engelbrecht regent for the ineffectual King Eric. Alfonso V of Aragon attempts to capture Naples, thus reuniting Naples and Sicily under one crown, but is captured and later released. France and Burgundy are reconciled by the Peace of Arras. 1437 AD. James I of Scotland is murdered at Perth by Sir Robert Graham, who is executed for the deed. James II succeeds his father. Emperor Sigismund dies and is succeeded by his son-in-law Albert II of Habsburg. 1439 AD. Serbia falls to Sultan Murad II. The Council of Florence ratifies the union of Roman and Byzantine churches under Rome's primacy. German King Albrecht II dies, leaving his wife pregnant. 1440 AD. Frederick III of Styria is elected German king. Ladislas Postumus is born and succeeds his late father Albrecht in Austria and Bohemia. In Hungary, Vladislav VI of Poland is invited to be king. Eton College is founded by Henry VI. 1441 AD. The churches of Rome and Ethiopia sign an act of union. The Portuguese sell Africans as slaves in Lisbon. From this, the slave trade will develop. 1442 AD. Eleanor Goppen, Duchess of Gloucester, is divorced and imprisoned on charge of attempting to kill Henry VI by sorcery. 1444 AD. Christians and Ottomans declare a truce at Adrianople, and George Brankovic is restored to his Principality of Serbia. Hungarians break the truce, but are defeated at Varna. Vladislav VI of Poland perishes there, and Ladislas Postumus succeeds to the Hungarian throne. 1445 AD. Cape Verde discovered by Dinis Diaz of Portugal. Copenhagen becomes the capital of Denmark. 1446 AD. Corinth falls to the Ottomans. János Hunyadi is elected regent of Hungary for Ladislas. 1448 AD. With the death of Christopher of Bavaria, King of Sweden, Denmark and Norway, the Union of Kalmar dissolves. Christian of Oldenburg reigns in Denmark and Norway, whilst Karl Knudsen is elected King of Sweden. Sultan Murad defeats the Hungarians under János Hunyadi at the Second Battle of Kosovo. Emperor John VIII dies and is succeeded by his brother Constantine XI. 1450 AD. Abd al-Latif dies. His cousin Abdullah Mirza succeeds him as Lord of Turkestan. Francesco Sforza overthrows the Republic in Milan and makes himself Duke. Normandy reconquered by France. Jack Cade leads a revolt in Kent and Sussex. It fails and Cade is killed, but Henry VI is forced to flee for safety to Kenilworth for a while. 1451 AD. Gascony reconquered by the French. Sultan Murad II dies and is succeeded by his son Muhammad II. 1453 AD. Constantinople falls to the Ottoman Sultan Muhammad II. Emperor Constantine XI perishes in the fighting, and the Byzantine Empire is no more. The French win a decisive victory over the English at Castellon, where Talbot dies. Gascony is reconquered and the English hold only Calais in France. The 100 Years' War is thus brought to an end. Henry VI has a bout of insanity. 1454 AD. The Duke of York is appointed protector during Henry VI's incapacity. The Peace of Lodi is reached between Venice and Milan and their allies. Venice signs a treaty with Sultan Muhammad II. 1455 AD. Henry VI recovers his sanity and dismisses the Duke of York from the post of protector. The Wars of the Roses begin when York and the Earl of Warwick at St. Albans. York is made Constable of England, but pro-Lancastrian riots break out. Johannes Gutenberg produces the first printed Bible using the movable metal type that he started to perfect in the 1450s. 1456 AD. The Ottomans capture Athens, but are repulsed from Belgrade by Johannes Gutenberg, who falls soon after from plague. Vlad III, the Impaler, retakes the Wallachian throne from Vladislav II. 1457 AD. Karl VIII of Sweden is driven out and replaced by Christian I of Denmark. Laszlo Hunyadi, son of Janus, is arrested and beheaded in Buda, sparking outrage in Hungary. Ladislav Postumus is forced to flee to Prague, where he dies suddenly. Emperor Frederick III succeeds in Austria. George Podiebrad, leader of the Hussites, is elected king in Bohemia. 1459 AD. Civil war is renewed in England. The Yorkists are victorious at Blore-Heath, but defeated at Ludford Bridge. The Irish come out in support of the Yorkists. 1460 AD. Henry VI defeated and captured by the Yorkists at Northampton. The Duke of York is named heir to Henry, but dies at the Battle of Wakefield, where the Lancastrians are victorious. James II of Scotland dies when a cannon misfires at Roxburgh, and is succeeded by his son James III. Henry the Navigator dies. 1461 AD. Yorkists victorious at Mortimer's Cross, where Owen Tudor is captured and executed, but defeated at St. Albans. Henry VI is rescued by the Lancastrians. Edward of York deposes Henry VI and crushes the Lancastrians at Towton. Henry VI and his family flee to Scotland. Charles VII of France dies and is succeeded by his son, Louis XI. 1462 AD. Vlad III, the Impaler of Wallachia, is deposed and replaced by his pro-Turkish brother Radu III. Prince Vasily of Moscow dies and is succeeded by his son, Ivan III the Great. 1463 AD. Bosnia conquered by the Ottomans, who go to war with the Venetians. England, France and Burgundy sign the Truce of Heston, the latter two recognizing Edward IV of York as King of England. 1464 AD. Yorkists victorious at Heshley Moor and Hexham, and to gain control of northern England. Louis XI of France founds the Poste Royale. Cosimo de' Medici dies and is succeeded by his son, Piero I. 1465 AD. Henry VI captured in Ribblesdale and imprisoned in the Tower. Louis XI of France defeated by a coalition of royal dukes at Monterey and is forced to sign the Treaty of Conflans. 1466 AD. The Medicis form an alliance with the Vatican to finance alum mining in the Papal States. George Podiebrad, King of Bohemia, excommunicated by Pope Paul II. 1467 AD. Philip the Good of Burgundy dies 1469 AD, rebellion develops in England against Edward IV and the power of his wife's family. Edward is imprisoned after his army deserts him at Olney and is released with a promise to appease the rebels. Piero de' Medici dies. His sons Lorenzo the Magnificent and Giuliano succeed him. Ferdinand, heir to the throne of Aragon, marries Isabella, heiress of Castile. 1470 AD. Portuguese seafarers reach the Gold Coast. Edward IV defeats a rebel army in Epingham, but Warwick and the Lancastrians reach an accord and invade, forcing Edward to flee to Burgundy. Henry VI is restored to the throne. 1471 AD. Edward IV returns to England, defeats and kills Warwick and Barnet, and then decisively defeats the Lancastrians at Tewkesbury, where Edward, Prince of Wales, perishes. Henry VI is murdered in the Tower. Louis XI of France and Charles the Bold of Burgundy go to war. 1473 AD. Charles the Bold of Burgundy occupies Lorraine and Alsace. Cyprus falls under Venetian rule. 1474 AD. The Union of Constance is formed against Charles the Bold of Burgundy, who makes an anti-French alliance via the Treaty of London with Edward IV. Henry IV of Castile dies and is succeeded by his half-sister Isabella and her husband Ferdinand, son of Juan II of Aragon. 1475 AD. Edward IV invades France, but is let down by his absent ally, Charles the Bold, and goes on to sign a 7-year truce with Louis XI via the Treaty of Picardy. 1476. Charles the Bold makes war on the Swiss, but is defeated at Cranston and later at Murat. Duke Galeazzo Sforza of Milan is assassinated by Republicans, but is succeeded by his son, Gian Galeazzo. William Caxton establishes the first English printing press. 1477 AD. Edward IV bans early forms of skittles and cricket due to their interference with archery practice. Charles the Bold of Burgundy dies fighting the Swiss at the Battle of Nancy. His state implodes and is effectively shared between Louis XI and Charles' son-in-law Maximilian, son of the Emperor Frederick III. 1478 AD. The Duke of Clarence is drowned in a butt of Malmsey while imprisoned in the Tower of London. Novgorod, subdued by Ivan the Great of Muscovy. Isabella of Castile unleashes the Inquisition on Jewish converts. Pope Sixtus VI and the Pazzi family plot to assassinate the Medicis. Giuliano is killed, but Lorenzo escapes and decimates the Pazzis in revenge. 1479 AD. Juan II of Aragon dies. His son Ferdinand succeeds him, and the thrones of Castile and Aragon are thus united. The Treaty of Constantinople ends the war between Venice and the Ottoman Empire. 1480 AD. Ivan III frees Muscovy from the Tartar domination. Duke Juan of Anjou dies. His domains, including Provence, are annexed by Louis XI. Otranto is taken by the Ottomans. 1481 AD. is succeeded by his son Bayezid II. Alfonso V of Portugal dies and is succeeded by his son João II. 1483 AD. Edward IV dies and is succeeded by his son Edward V, who disappears along with his brother Richard in the Tower. Their uncle Richard assumes the kingship. Louis XI of France dies and is succeeded by his son Charles VIII. The Dominican Thomas de Torquemada takes control of the Spanish Inquisition. 1484 AD. Diego Cao discovers the mouth of the river Congo. Pope Innocent VIII issues the bull Summus Desterrantes against witchcraft. 1485 AD. Emperor Frederick III expelled from Vienna by Matthias Corvinus of Norway. Henry Tudor invades England against Richard III, defeats and kills him at Bosworth Field, and takes the throne. Caxton publishes Mallory's Morte d'Arthur. 1486 AD. Matthias Corvinus devises a law code for Hungary. Henry VII marries Elizabeth of York and unites the houses of Lancaster and York. Cremer and Spranger publish the Malleus Maleficarum, attacking witches and witchcraft. 1487 AD. Lambert Simnel leads revolt against Henry VII, claiming to be Edward IV's nephew, but is defeated at Stoke and sent to work in the royal kitchens. Bartholomew Diaz sails around the Cape of Good Hope, which he names the Cape of Storms. 1488 AD. James III of Scotland is murdered. His son James IV succeeds him. Duke Francis of Brittany dies and is succeeded by his daughter Anne. Johannes Gutenberg develops the use of the symbols plus, ampersand, and minus. Bartholomew Diaz returns to Lisbon, where João II gives the Cape of Good Hope its name. 1489 AD. Typhus is brought to Aragon by soldiers returning from Cyprus. Catherine Cornaro of Cyprus is forced to sell her kingdom to Venice. Henry VII signs the anti-French Treaty of Redon with Brittany. 1491 AD. Perkin Warbeck claims to be Richard, Duke of York, and rallies support for his cause in France and Ireland. Charles VII of France annexes Brittany by forcing Anne of Brittany to marry him. 1492 AD. Granada, the last Moorish city, conquered by Ferdinand and Isabella. Spain effectively one country. Lorenzo the Magnificent of Florence dies and is succeeded by his son Piero II. Casimir IV of Poland and Lithuania dies and is succeeded by his sons John Albert in Poland and Alexander in Lithuania. Rodrigo Borgia elected Pope as Alexander VI. Henry VII invades France and is bought off by Charles VIII under the Treaty of Etaples, with compensation for Brittany's annexation and the expulsion of Warbeck. Jews in Spain are ordered to convert or quit the country. Christopher Columbus discovers Cuba and Hispaniola. 1493 AD. Columbus returns home from was governor of the new lands by Isabella of Castile, discovering Dominica. Pope Alexander VI publishes the bull Inter Cetera Divina, dividing the New World between Spain and Portugal. Emperor Frederick III dies and is succeeded by his son Maximilian I. 1494 AD. Emperor Maximilian I recognizes Warbeck as King of England. Spain and Portugal divide the New World by the Treaty of Tordesillas. Charles VIII of France invades Italy, deposes Piero de' Medici in Florence, and takes Rome. Duke Gian Galeazzo of Milan dies, probably poisoned by his uncle Ludovico, who succeeds him. 1495 AD. Charles VIII of France expels Alfonso II of Naples and is crowned king of the state, but is forced to retreat by Alfonso's son Ferdinand II, who assumes the kingship. Syphilis strikes the state, and the French soldiers are badly affected by it. The Diet of Worms is established to modernize the Holy Roman Empire. João II of Portugal dies, and is succeeded by his cousin Manuel the Fortunate. Warbeck received by James IV of Scotland. A dry dock is built in Portsmouth, establishing the dockyard there. 1496 AD. Henry VII commissions John Cabot to search for new lands. The Canary Islands conquered by Spain. Ferdinand II of Naples dies and is succeeded by his uncle Frederick IV. James IV invades Northumberland in support of Warbeck. Manuel I of Portugal expels the Jews from his country. 1497 AD. John and Sebastian Cabot reach Labrador and Newfoundland. The Cornish rebel against taxation, but are defeated at Blackheath. Warbeck lands in Cornwall, but is captured. John of Denmark defeats the Swedish at Brunkeberg and revives the Union of Kalmar. Savonarola stages a bonfire of vanities in Florence. Vasco da Gama rounds the Cape of Good Hope and gives Natal its name as he discovers it on Christmas Day. 1498 AD. Charles VIII of France dies and is succeeded by his second cousin once removed, Louis XII, Duke of Orleans. Savonarola burned at the stake for heresy. Vasco da Gama reaches Malindi in East Africa and then Calicut in India. Columbus embarks on a third voyage, discovering Trinidad and the Orinoco River. 1499 AD. Louis XII of France divorces his wife Jane and marries Anne of Brittany to keep the duchy in French hands. Emperor Maximilian and the Swiss go to war. By the Peace of Basel, Swiss independence is granted. Venice and the Ottomans go to war. The Venetian fleet is defeated at Sapienza. Montenegro falls to the Ottomans. Louis XII takes Milan, forcing Ludovico Sforza to flee to the Tyrol. Perkin Warbeck is executed. 1500 AD. IV of Naples dies. Pope Alexander VI declares Louis XII Frederick's successor. Ismaili I, Sheikh of Ardabil, defeats Shah Alawand of Persia at Shurur and establishes Safavid rule in the country. Emperor Maximilian I recognizes the French conquests in Italy by the Peace of Trent. 1502 AD. St. Helena, discovered by João de Nova. Arthur, Prince of Wales, dies at Ludlow. 1503 AD. Louis XII of France abandons his claim to the Neapolitan throne after his alliance with Ferdinand of Aragon collapses. Gonzalo de Cordoba defeats a French army and enters Naples. James IV of Scotland marries Margaret Tudor, daughter of Henry VII. Pope Alexander VI dies and is succeeded briefly by Pius III and then by Julius II. 1505 AD. Ivan III of Muscovy dies and is succeeded by his son Vasily III. 1506 AD. Niccolo Machiavelli forms a Florentine militia, the first national army established in Italy. Christopher Columbus dies. 4,000 Jews perish in a riot in Lisbon. Philip the Handsome, son of the Emperor Maximilian and husband of the de jure Castilian queen Joanna, dies, sending his wife mad. 1508 AD. Juan Ponce de Leon colonizes Puerto Rico. Pope Julius II confirms that the German king will automatically become Holy Roman Emperor. Michelangelo starts painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. 1509 AD. Francisco de Almeida destroys a Muslim fleet at the Battle of Joux, guaranteeing Portuguese control of the spice trade. Pope Julius II excommunicates the Venetian Republic, which is defeated by the French at Agnadello. Henry VII dies and is succeeded by his son, Henry VIII. 1510 AD. Alfonso de Albuquerque seizes Goa for Portugal. Sir Richard Epsom and Edmund Dudley beheaded by Henry VIII for their unpopular fiscal policies under his father. 1511 AD. Portuguese forces under Albuquerque seize Malaga, the centre of the spice trade. Julius II forms the Holy League with Venice to drive the French from Italy and enlists the support of Ferdinand of Aragon and Henry VIII. 1512 AD. Forces of the Holy League are defeated by the French at Ravenna, but the French are then driven from Milan. Massimiliano Sforza, son of the deposed Duke Ludovico, becomes Duke. Sultan Bayezid dies mysteriously after being deposed by his Janissaries. His son, Selim I the Grim, succeeds him. 1513 AD. Juan Ponce de Leon discovers Florida. John of Denmark dies and is succeeded by his son Christian II, who is rejected by the Swedes. Pope Julius II dies and is succeeded by Leo X. Henry VIII invades France, where he and Emperor Maximilian are successful in the Battle of Guingat, the Spurs. James IV of Scotland takes advantage of the English in France to invade, but his army is routed at Flodden, and James is killed, to be succeeded by his infant son, James V. 1514 AD. The Henry Grace Adieu, the largest warship in the world, is launched in England. Thomas Wolsey becomes Archbishop of York. The Ottoman Sultan Selim invades Persia and routs the Persian army at Chaldiran. 1515 AD. Louis XII of France dies and is succeeded by his son-in-law, Francois I, who defeats the Swiss and Venetians at Marignano and takes Milan. 1516 AD. Ferdinand II of Aragon dies and is succeeded on the Spanish throne by his grandson, Charles I. Pope Leo X and Francois I of France signed the Concordat of Bologna, giving France freedom in ecclesiastical appointments. Sultan Selim I defeats the Mamluks at Marstebek and takes Syria. Thomas More publishes Utopia. 1517 AD. Egypt falls to the Ottoman Turks, to whom the Sheriff of Mecca submits, leaving Arabia under Ottoman control. Martin Luther nails 95 theses to the door of Wittenberg Cathedral, attacking the sale of indulgences. In 1519 AD, Emperor Maximilian dies and is succeeded by his grandson Charles V, the first of Spain. Vasco de Balboa is beheaded in Panama as he loses the power struggle amongst the Spanish in Central America. Hernan Cortes enters Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, and is received by Emperor Montezuma, whom he takes prisoner. 1520 AD. Christian II of Denmark invades Sweden and is successful at Tiverton and Uppsala before taking Stockholm. Despite proclaiming an amnesty, he executes numerous leading Swedes. Henry VIII and Francois I meet at the Field of Cloth of Gold. Near Calais. Cortes driven from the Tenochtitlan by Sultan Selim I dies and is succeeded by his son Suleiman I the Magnificent. Ferdinand de Magellan sails through the Strait of Magellan and names the Pacific. 1521 AD. Martin Luther is interrogated by the Diet of Worms. Refusing to recant, he is put in the castle of Wartburg for his own protection by Frederick of Saxony and begins a German translation of the Bible. Ferdinand Magellan dies in a skirmish in the Philippines. Cortes overthrows the Aztec Empire. Montezuma II dies in the fighting. Sultan Suleiman I takes Belgrade. Henry VIII is awarded the title Defender of the Faith by Leo X for an anti-Lutheran work. 1522 AD. Luther returns to Wittenberg and initiates church services in German. Sultan Suleiman takes Rhodes from the Knights of St. John. Juan Sebastiano del Cano returns home after finishing Magellan's circumnavigation of the world. 1523 AD. Christian II of Denmark, deposed by his nobles for cruelty and replaced by his uncle Frederick I. Gustavus Vasa takes advantage of the situation to be crowned King of Sweden. Sir Thomas More elected Speaker of the House of Commons. Francois I of France at Pavia, imprisons him and establishes control over Italy. Albert von Brandenburg, Grand Master of the Teutonic Knights, makes himself Duke of Prussia. A peasants' revolt in Germany is suppressed and its leader, Thomas Munzer, executed. Cardinal Wolsey gives Hampton Court to Henry VIII. 1526 AD. Francois I of France signs the Treaty of Madrid, ceding various lands to Charles V, but renounces it because the terms were extorted from him, and allies himself with Sultan Suleiman, who defeats and kills Louis II of Hungary at the Battle of Moax. Ferdinand, brother of Emperor Charles V, is chosen to succeed Louis II in Hungary and Bohemia, but the Hungarians elect John Zapolya as king. Zahir ud-Din Babur defeats Sultan Ibrahim Lodi of Delhi at Panipat, takes Agra and founds the Mughal Empire. 1528 AD. The physician and alchemist Paracelsus is forced from Basel due to his unorthodox medical opinions and treatments. 1529 AD. Francois I of France and Emperor Charles V make peace via the Treaty of Cambrai. Suleiman the Magnificent takes Buda and besieges Vienna but fails to take it. Cardinal Wolsey falls from power due to his inability to secure a divorce for Henry VIII from Catherine of Aragon. Sir Thomas More replaces him as Lord Chancellor, the first layman to hold the post. 1530 AD. The Knights of St. John are settled in Malta by Emperor Charles V. Melanchthon prepares the Confession of Augsburg as a statement of faith for the German Protestant princes who formed the Schmalkaldic League against Emperor Charles V. Cardinal Wolsey is arrested for treason, but dies whilst on his way to trial. The Mughal Emperor Babur dies and is succeeded by his son Humayun. 1531 AD. Lisbon is destroyed by an earthquake. The Catholic Swiss cantons attack and defeat Zurich in the Battle of Cappel. Zwingli dies in the fighting. 1532 AD. The English clergy recognize Henry VIII as supreme head of the church. Sultan Suleiman invades Hungary. The Inca chief Atahualpa seized by Pizarro, who reintroduces horses to South America. Francois Rabelais publishes Pantagruel. 1533